Welcome everyone. Today we have another new episode and we're going to discuss about leadership and especially leadership in troubled time. So we have our special guest today, Mr. TJ Was, as well as Ali Rice. They are famous with their writing, with their like different kind of innovative work. So I start with Mr. Tizewas. How do you want to analyze the leadership in troubled times? Especially you are political analyst and you have a deep understanding about leaderships, especially in politics. So yes, what's your
Yes,
opinion?
I believe that we are in a civil war right now, like Abraham Lincoln fought for the North to free the slaves. For Joe Biden, so we're very divisive right now, and I believe that we should look forward to uh, making sure that everybody is on the same team, just like Benjamin Franklin, who is famous for being on the $100 bill. He said that we need to hang together, or surely we shall hang separately. So that's my analysis of that right now. We're very divided here in America, and we need to work together to restore our Constitution.
Thank you. Madam Ali Rice, how do you want to analyze this leadership and especially leadership in this challenging moment?
Yeah, well, I think we just need to think differently, and the lockdowns that we've been through, because we're just coming out of the third lockdown in England. I think that it's pushed people to kind of think differently, so we need to pivot and be really. No, I feel like there's inevitables, even though there aren't bombs, and I think the kind of isolation and the mental health and the impact and the fear that's been generated by propaganda has kind of put us into a similar situation that a war would have been. So and I think it's quite a war on the spirit as well. So it's effectively, if you're taken in by the fear, then you kind of feel like you can't do anything. So I think it's really important to try and rise above the kind of storm of everything, really, and still try and function and find sustainable ways of moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. We have our climate activist. He is very famous with his different kind of projects and everything in California.
Did you hear me okay?
So, yes. So, Mr. Alex, how do you want to analyze leadership, especially leadership in troubled time? And especially you face a lot of challenges with your climate change related activities from around the world. So how do you want to define these climate change issues?
Yes, can you guys hear me okay? Is my headset working today?
Yes.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Apologize, I'm in my vehicle, waking up early as usual. I don't have good internet at home, so I have to drive all the way into town. So today's topic, leadership. And it's an important topic, especially when we're talking about activism, and the world needs more leaders, but they need more good leaders, not just leaders running major companies and corporations or things destroying the earth. We need more leaders becoming activists, environmental activists, helping with some of these movements, animal issues, veganism or whatever movement. But we need more people becoming leaders and then trying to help make the world a better place, not just trying to make money. So hopefully there are some people watching this program and that can apply some of this. So I've done a lot of projects, a lot of environmental projects. I've organized major beach cleanups, major environmental projects, and I've tried not necessarily to be a leader, but to organize things and to try to get things done, because we have a lot of work to do around the world from an environmental perspective, because we're not where we need to be. We have a lot of things that we have to work on, not just with reducing our individual carbon footprint and transitioning towards global sustainability, but we also have to sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Let me just turn down the volume and see if that helps. So one of the things that I would talk about when it comes to leadership is the leader, they personally have to be, strong and healthy. And I realize that because when I'm having a bad day, when I'm tired, when I'm not drinking coffee, it's hard to be a leader when you're not, alert and wide awake and you feel good. So I think just being, mentally and physically strong yourself is important, and that has to do with drinking a lot of water, eating organic, taking naturopathic supplements if you need to, working out, maybe doing yoga and jogging and doing all those different things to just make sure that your mind, body, and soul is strong. And then once you have that taken care of, then you could focus on being a leader and helping other people. So I like making mind maps, and a mind map shows you your goals, your objectives, things you're working on, things that you have to take care of, things that you want to buy, things, people you want to keep in contact with, certain networks. So mind maps are really cool when it comes to organizing a project, and I think a lot of the leaders and people that own major nonprofits and companies, they have created a mind map. So I think that would be a really good tool. If you don't know what a mind map is, please get in Google and Google image search mind maps. And it's something you could do with crayons, color pencils, different pencils, and you usually get like a big chart, a big board. And, those big pieces of paper that, activists hold up and for school projects and such. And then you just write down all the different things in your goals that you're trying to do. And I think being a leader, when it comes to that, is just like staying organized. You have your goals, your objectives, what you're trying to accomplish, and that's some advice I'd like to bring into this conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and write down some more notes, and then leave some time back.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our Professor Adrian, that we are discussing today about leadership in troubled time. So how do you want to analyze the leadership, different kind of leadership features and quality we need to improve? Especially, what's your advice for the youth community, how they can grow their leadership skills in this COVID-19 situation?
Well, I think that we're still in the middle of the history, so to speak. The pandemic's not over, so I think when it's finished, when it's all finished, some professor maybe will or some organization will write a book about what was the best form of leadership for this 2020, the year of the coronavirus pandemic. I think we still don't know what was the best the best form of leadership, because I'm in Australia now. I'm in Adelaide, Australia, and we have zero cases in the community, but that comes at a price of the Australian government has had massive lockdowns. There's compulsory 2-week quarantine for anyone who comes in the country. Only Australians can come to the country, and Australians cannot leave the country. So yes, you have zero coronavirus cases, but it comes at a very severe restrictions. Then we look at America, which maybe under Trump had no real leadership in terms of coronavirus, but they did very well with the vaccines. We have to give credit to Trump for that. I think in the whole of human history, no one's ever developed vaccines so fast. So and then of course you look at Europe. Germany didn't handle it very well, even though Germany is normally a very efficient country. So I think we still don't know what is people are going to study this in the future. This is going to be the subject of many research of what was the best form of leadership in the pandemic. So I think at this stage we can't really say what is the best form because we're in the we're in so-called in the middle of the history. It's hard to make any comment when you're in the middle of the history. So I think we have to wait some time before we can understand what was the best form of leadership or governance.
Thank you, thank you. That is one of the important questions actually I get from the audience. Mr. Shahrukh, his question is that what is more important in times of crisis or pandemic, leadership or management? So I want to start this discussion from Ali. Madam Ali, yes. Madam Ali, can you hear me? Okay, TJ was that, yeah.
Yes, leadership or management. I believe that you have to have both to go hand in hand. So that's the best of both worlds is where we have strong leadership. We have Dr. Fauci here in America, who is the expert top doctor on that. And I have already got my vaccine so far.
That leadership, so you can trust what. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Ali,
go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I think TJ, you just continue.
Yes, talking about Dr. Fauci, who has recommended the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Just 2 days ago, I got my Moderna vaccine, the first shot, and I'm going to get the second shot a month from now. And I just want to say that we have a very strong leader in Joe Biden as our president of America, who has piggybacked on Operation Warp Speed, is what they called it under the Trump administration. So I think that we're doing the best that we can, and we're doing a lot better than the Spanish pandemic that was in 1918 that killed millions of people. We are getting herd immunity right now. So I think that just as anarcho-capitalism, what I believe in, the customers and the consumers are making it known that they want to volunteer if they want to wear a face mask or not. And we're over the hill. I think that the best days are ahead of us during this pandemic. I think that we're on the other side right now where it's just going to get better from now on.
Thank you. Madam Ali, can you hear me? I think Alex, you please continue.
Yeah, it seems like there's a really long delay in between us and Ali. That's what's going on.
Yeah, she's cutting in and out, and I can't hear her.
Yeah, where is she located? Where's Ali located?
UK.
Yeah, maybe that's why. So I would like to. So it's TJ, right?
I think
that's correct, Alex.
Am I muted?
So as far as leadership and management, I think he answered that really well. I mean, when Sharif asked that question, you know, what's more important, leadership and management? My mind kept going back and forth. That's a tough decision because you need leadership and you need management. And I mean, they call managers managers because they're leaders. So I don't know what would be more effective in different situations. I know that you have to have some sort of leadership to manage things, and that's what's that called? The hierarchy structure, how things work. I mean, that's how companies are built, and how you have one person, you know, looking over and regulating what, you know, 4 people are doing or 10 people, and then each of those people. I mean, that's how things stay organized. Because if you don't have you know, leadership, or you don't have, or you have a whole bunch of people doing different things and no one to turn to when they have questions or need some sort of direction, or you know, ask for advice and stuff like that. I think that would cause an issue. So yeah, that's tough. As far as leadership goes, again, so I've taken a public speaking course, and I know I might not be the best public speaker this early in the morning. It's like 6 or 7 in the morning here, but I do know that there's the 5 steps of persuasive speech, and it seems like leaders would use some of those steps to encourage or motivate or even inspire some of the workers and some of their employees or some of their volunteers or some of the people that they're trying to encourage to do well and to stay motivated and to continue to perform well. So again, I don't have all those persuasive speech steps right now, but it has to do with like, inspiring, and then, looking in the future, and this is what it could be. And anyways, so another thing that leaders do is, instead of being mad at people or yelling at people or getting upset with them or penalizing them, a lot of good leaders, they use different forms of reward and support and encouragement, and continue to give feedback, and just be nice to their employees, nice to their volunteers, the workers, or the people helping them with the project. So I think that's just a better form of management and of leadership, is just more support, and you just work with the people more instead of getting upset. And I know there's a lot of companies where the leadership just gets really upset. So, and then when there are leaders, you have to trust the leader. So that's another trait. You have to have a trusting leader, and if you don't trust your leader, it's not going to be as effective. So those are some additional things I'd like to add to this conversation.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
thank you, thank you, thank you. We have our honorable speaker, Dr. Talib. So, Dr. Talib, that we are discussing. Can you hear me? Dr. Talib, can you hear me? I think he has some issues with internet connections. Professor Adrian, yes.
Yeah, no, I don't really have much to add on that. I think what Alex said was very, very correct. So at this stage, I would just agree with Alex.
Thank you. Dr. Talib, can you hear me? Dr. Talib, can you hear me? Sorry, there is another question from audience. I just want to take these questions. Tahrina, her question, that what is the influence of leadership style on employee performance in case of remote leaderships? So I think she's talking about remote working and this kind of opportunities. When a team, like a leader, run a teams from the remote area, so how should he play as a leadership role? It's from Tizewas.
Yes, I'd like to say that we need to have more servant leadership, kind of like whenever we had the past presidents got the vaccines, they were showing and telling the public that they needed to do that. And in the case of remote work versus in person, we need to do like what General Patton from World War II would say. He said, tell people what to do, not how to do it, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity for getting the job done.
Thank you. Madam Ali, can you hear me? I think she has a problem. Sorry, I'm really sorry that today we have internet problem. Mr. Alex.
Yeah, so as far as leaders go, what was just mentioned by TJ, anytime there's a leader, instead of just always telling people what to do and delegating tasks and getting upset with them, a lot of leaders, they actually get their hands dirty, or they get in on the assembly line and they help out, and they're constantly busy. They're always working, and they show that they can perform the same task, and sometimes they work alongside of the employees or the volunteers. It helps with morale. And so trust is important. I mentioned trust, and then just being presentable. I think just dressing nice, communication skills when you're talking to employees, having good eye contact, maybe working with your hands, being clear, and just trying to communicate with the employees is important. So just having good communication skills, I think, is really important as far as a leader. And there's different things you could learn about communication skills, how to communicate really well, how to communicate effectively. And I think the more you learn about communication and maybe psychology, then you could be a better leader, and you can connect more with the people and the the employees or volunteers that you do have. There's a lot of cool infographics and stuff that I've found online whenever I'm working on a project, I do love using Google Images, and I can search Google Images, and there's a lot of information and infographics that I've saved into different folders and tried to stay organized with what I have in my computer, depending on what project that I'm working on. I am fortunate that I have a nice laptop, and I have my smartphone, and I have, my vehicle and my notepad. So having some of these tools allows me to do my projects effectively, to be a leader when I am, organizing a beach cleanup or environmental project. Just having the tools that I need, having, the things that I need to do my plan, to do my drawings, to get in my laptop, to organize my files, to drive to where I need to go. So that's, a plus. Another thing is just staying organized. With smartphones, we could use the notepads and all of that, but just having, like a list of contacts and, your goals and all of that, just staying organized and tools and is important. So another thing that I've noticed with my projects that I've done over the years, whether it's a, environmental cleanup or a big protest or different forms of activism, is just being dedicated. It's not being distracted on 1,000 other projects, but when you're a leader, you do have to redirect a large percentage of your attention and your time towards that project. I have, been very successful with removing a large volume of pollution with a lot of volunteers, and undertaking a lot of large goals and objectives with different volunteers, people, companies, and corporations. And anytime I'm doing a big project like that, the more important the project, the more important I'm going to direct my time and attention towards that. And I think that's really important as a leader, is just knowing that you're in the place to really make a difference. You have a lot of people looking up to you or expecting, advice and, some of these leadership type, traits. So your time and attention towards that goal and objective is important. So,
Alex,
Thank
you
you.
talked about environmentalism. I'm actually a libertarian environmentalist, and there was a company just recently. The customers were asking the leadership to be more green and help out the environment and save Mother Nature. And what that beer company did is they made 6-pack rings out of edible hemp plastic that the animals and sea turtles could eat. And when you throw it in the trash and then go out and when you're cleaning up the beach, that's something that I look forward to, is hemp plastic can save the future because it's
I've seen
edible
some of
for
those
animals.
rings, not with hemp, but very cool. Yeah. So public feedback and good PR really helps a company. And then just having conversations like this, and if someone owns a company or a corporation and they're watching this program, or the more they know about environmental solutions or having feedback from the public like that, it does help our shift towards sustainability. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, Professor Adrian.
Yes. So what would you like me to talk about?
Actually, they're discussing about climate change activists, as an even what's going on inside USA, like when they are solving this climate change related things. Even Alex actually discussed about more about remote work and other things he's doing with his team. So specifically, we are discussing how we can develop the leadership quality in this challenging situation. What your opinions? How we can integrate more with technology?
Well, I think we mentioned last week, I think we've reached the end of the, the gas age, the petrol age, and we've entered the electric age. And we're seeing more and more, private industry embrace, electric vehicles is a very, very big thing. It seems like a very big future now. So I think that there was a lot of great leadership from the 1980s, 90s, 2000s to try to push the environmental change. But I think we've reached a tipping point now where it's become economically viable and economically, profitable for companies to embrace, let's say, clean energy. renewable energy. So I think we've reached that tipping point already, and now it's a matter of the technologies to develop, the technology to make the most efficient renewable energy that we can. Um, there still will be a lot of gas and petrol being used, because but I think we have basically reaching the end of the gas era, and people will see this as the start of the electric age. But it will still be a very long time before people stop using, gas and petrol to drive their cars or heat their homes. But we are getting to a tipping point now where electric energy is becoming very, uh, you know, profitable and efficient for vehicles and other kinds of industries. So I think that in terms of climate change, we really have reached the point where we are going to become more efficient in terms of the energy.
Thank you. Madam Ali, can you hear me? Ali, can you hear me? Teacher was. Anyway, you are a political analyst, and USA actually moved from one political leaders to the another political leaders. What is the positive things you are observing right now happening inside USA, especially in terms of political transformations and how actually Biden administration handled this COVID-19
Yeah, I can.
situations?
Can you hear me?
Oh, Ali's back. Let her talk.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, please, Madam Ali, please continue. I think she has internet problem. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll go on and say that the best thing that is happening right now in America is that there's much more transparency in the Biden administration. He's opened it up and let the record be straight with his press conferences that he's giving right now. And I think that there are a lot more state governors that are being much more proactive with the coronavirus. They're taking their servant leadership skills and delegating that to the people to go ahead and volunteer to help out in the communities while we've been stuck at home during this coronavirus. Many people have been doing volunteer opportunities. So I think the best thing is that people are organizing to clean up the streets with garbage and doing other great things to help raise money for the community and helping make sure that people are taken care of in America no matter where you are. There's no excuse to be homeless in America with so many churches and houses that are not occupied right now. We can do much better, I believe, but we're on the right track. I think that I feel very positive about the next 4 years in America. It's being transformational, especially with the coronavirus stimulus package that was passed by Congress. I believe that small and medium businesses are going to be able to compete with the large corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Alex.
Good point. So yeah, as we're on the topic of leadership, there's some more things that I wanted to add regarding a good leader. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of bad leaders know all of these tricks, or bad people. There's been a lot of bad people that know the tricks and the traits how to become a good leader. And we don't want to see more of that. We want to see good people being leaders. So hopefully this information continues to reach good people. So to be a good leader, I think, depending on what the job is, don't just like go apply for a job and try to be a manager in something that you don't in a job that you don't want to be working at, or a company, or doing a project, because being passionate and being like honestly passionate about that job is really important, because then you're going to be able to dedicate more of your mind and your it's just more real. So being passionate about what you're trying to do, what your goals are, working for that company, what your end goal is, just being passionate in general about that, I think is going to help you become a better leader. I can just, this is like across the board, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be you're not going to be inspiring people, they're not going to be trusting you, they're not going to be looking up to you, they're not going to be motivated by you. So I think being passionate about whatever it is that you're trying to lead, I think that's really important. So being a good listener is another good trait of being a leader. Not only do you have to, ask people to do certain tasks, and some of them are more challenging than others, but just listening to their feedback and then understanding what they're telling you, and at the same time being empathetic to what they are telling you if they're questioning something or if they're concerned, but just listening to some of their advice, because they may be on the front lines, whether it's out in the field or working on the assembly line, they're seeing things firsthand. And if you're not a good listener, it could potentially put some of the employees or some of the volunteers at risk. I mean, if they're warning you about something and you don't hear it because you're too busy, distracted with something else, then you might not be able to address a certain issue that they're trying to bring forward to you. And it might just be, a couple words or a couple sentences, but just being a good listener, I think, is really important. Like I'm doing here, I have a notepad and paper. I think if you're, going to be a leader, taking notes instead of just trying to remember everything and doing different tasks, maybe having a small notepad that you can keep in your back pocket or a larger notepad, just trying to stay organized and take notes as you're, dealing with some of the employees, some of the volunteers, and some of the people that are, performing these job tasks. So just listening to what they have to say, that also shows that you care about them, you care about the project, and it does show that you're more passionate about the overall project. Having the ability to delegate certain tasks is, basically like, you need to know how to delegate tasks as a leader. So you need to be able to tell, this group of people that this is what they're going to be doing, asking, these people to be doing this. I mean, you need to delegate certain objectives, and that goes for, companies, corporations, and definitely volunteer opportunities. So then people aren't confused, and they're not in different places doing different things. You need to delegate to what you would like them to be doing, or where you would like them to be doing it, and how you'd like them to be doing it. Because if you come back and then they did something completely different, it's because you didn't delegate the job task correctly. So being courageous, or having courage, is another important aspect. Because being a leader, you're really just putting yourself out there. You can't be what are those called, introverts. You kind of have to have a lot of courage, you have to have good social skills, you have to be brave, regardless if that takes a big cup of coffee or a good night's rest. All these things are important. So courage is really important to become a leader, because you do have to usually speak in front of a large volume of people. You have to talk to a lot of people. High energy is important. So dedication kind of goes along with passion that I mentioned a few minutes ago. Just being dedicated to the end goal. Like, is it to remove a lot of trash? Is it to distribute a lot of food on a humanitarian mission? Is it to build the next best product? I mean, whatever the goal is, the end goal, whatever's trying to be accomplished, just being dedicated to that. And it doesn't mean working on your when you're not at work, your day or your days off, but just being dedicated when you're there is also equally important. So confidence, I think, goes a long way. That's when you stand up straight and eye contact, and you speak loudly and clearly to the people that you're trying to convince to do a certain job task. And so confidence is important. It also helps people trust you more. The more confident that you are when you're explaining something to them, the more it helps. So confidence also comes from knowing the information. If you are performing a job, a task, and all this, so if you're a leader, you're not really so confident if you don't really know what the goal is or what the objective is. So the more confident you are, the better leader you'll be. And that does take, doing a lot of research in the background, having that education, knowing those skills, knowing what the company is, not just, going to start, not like just having a nice resume and filling out an application and start working at a job you know nothing about. That's gonna, you might not be the best leader because you're not confident, because you don't really know much about the products or the services. So two more things. So decisiveness is important. That's if instead of just questioning what people are doing and where they're at, just being decisive. Like, okay, this team, I like you to do this task, and you individuals over there, please do all these tasks. So just kind of knowing what you want people to be doing, whether it's on the assembly line or cleaning up trash, just because that it's time wasted if you can't figure out where you want them. So just trying to make decisions quick, but also just trying to make the right decisions and smart decisions, but trying to be decisive and trying to be clear with what you would like people to be doing to collectively reach your end goal, whatever that might be. So decisiveness is important. And one of the last things that I'd like to mention is just optimism. Just being optimist that you are going to be able to clean up the trash, or you are going to be able to distribute, a large volume of food during a humanitarian mission, or you're going to be able to, sell the next best green product or organic, food, product to a large volume of people and make a lot of money and help make the world a better place. So optimism is really important.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
Alex, you taught very excellent points there. I just wanted to say that I teach public speaking at the college level, and one of the lessons for my students is that I'm from Kansas, and we're famous for the Wizard of Oz. And if you remember Dorothy Gale, she goes there and she meets the Scarecrow, the Tin Woodsman, and the Cowardly Lion. And what I like to say, a good leader needs to have a heart, a brain, and a backbone for courage in order to be great for your company or for political leadership.
Okay, yeah, a balance in between those. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We have our great leaders, Professor Dr. Talib Rafai. He ran all of the important organizations, just like United Nations and even World Economic Forum. So, Dr. Talib, I love to learn from you. What do you mean by leaderships and how they should play their role in this challenging moment? Yes, Professor Talib, can you hear me?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think one of the most important elements of leadership is having a passion to what you do. You should believe in what you do. You're talking to a living example of somebody that never had worked in tourism. Yet when I worked in tourism 20 years ago only, I had 20 years before that being an academic, teaching architecture, nothing to do with tourism. But I fell in love with the tourism, like an old man falling in love, old and terminal age. You have to have passion to what you do. Otherwise, it does not work. Secondly, be yourself. Don't leave any door unopened. You should keep all doors open. In other words, don't let opportunities pass by. And it's times of crisis that brings the best out of you. Pressure brings the best out of me usually. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Ali, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
So yes, now it's clear.
Yeah.
So like you are innovation specialist. So
I am.
how leaders can utilize their innovations and innovative skills in their workplace?
Because I think I fundamentally work in education, but I think creativity is key. So essentially, to be innovative, we need to try to figure out what's possible that we haven't done before. And I think the lockdown crisis has enabled everyone to pivot and look at possibility. So I think if you look at the positives, you need to see how to move forward. And the systems, however you want to see them, weren't sustainable. So essentially, we need to get to a place where we're more sustainable environmentally, where people are happier, where we're more connected to the planet, where children are inspired and engaged. So it's kind of and people that do work need to be as inspired and engaged too. So I think leadership needs to give room for people to utilize their passions and their skills effectively. And I think, that's the secret to kind of moving forward, or for children to be successful in education. So I think that's the way forward. And there's lots of kind of knock-on effects. But I think the thing is that what lockdowns brought us is a way, as a stop to what we were doing, so we can reconnect and think differently and think, some things weren't working, people weren't happy, children weren't engaged, So fundamentally, there were root problems that before COVID, and the systems need to be sustainable and need to be different. So, and the thing is that everybody can make a change now. You can't wait. You're part of the future to co-create something that's going to be different. So just one person can make a difference, even in their viewpoint, and just one child can. It's kind of, Seven Suzuki, who's David Suzuki's daughter, stopped politicians, when she was like 10 or 11 years old, and she was playing at the time, before I can't remember the name. Greta Thunberg. She was ahead of the curve, and so it's kind of, and people haven't listened, because essentially materialism and capitalism is based on making money, and it's based on disregarding anything else. And the ecology of the planet is what we rely on. So as Alex said, it's kind of, that's fundamental to our healthy well-being. And it's good food that hasn't got anything in it builds our immunity. Good choices. So, pharmacy companies, food companies, processed food isn't a good idea. It's kind of, so I think the thing is we need to go back to nature. And that's what, as in the UK, that's what people have done. We live in a rural area and people have reconnected to nature. So, it's kind of, and reconnected to what's important and reflected on, how they want to live their lives. And, so it's kind of readdressing the balance. So there's a reset going on internally, externally, in families, and kind of in the wider world. And we're all in it together. So it's, it's kind of, so everything that we do makes a difference. Everything that our children do, our mindset, having a fixed mindset to think that we're going back to normal. Normal probably wasn't that great for everybody. So I think it's so that's my view.
Thank you. Professor Adrian, I think this is very late for you. Professor Adrian, can you hear me? Okay, Tizewas.
Yes, what would you like to ask?
Yes, basically my question is that one of our audience, he just want to know when this trouble, this kind of challenging moment come, it's an opportunity to identify the real attitudes of the leaders, real performance of the leaders. So what do you think? What your analysis?
Well, I believe that there's this concept called spontaneous order, where people from the ground up are able to affect the hierarchy of the leadership. And we're seeing Ali talked about Greta Thunberg. She was the Time Magazine Person of the Year because of her great environmental work. And there are many teens and young adults in their 20s and 30s who are making a difference every day to make sure that their communities are clean as well. So it always starts with you. There's an old parable from China that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And so no matter where you're at right now, we can all take leadership skills. No matter what you do as a profession, you can always be a leader in your community and help out locally to volunteer. So that's what I believe.
Thank you. Professor Adrian, I know that this is very late for you. If you want, you can give your concluding remarks and you can leave for today's session. No problem. Yes, I know.
It's okay. I'm fine, don't worry.
Okay. Thank you. So we are discussing about a different challenging situation, how the leaders are handling right now. Dr. Talib, he's a great leader, great politician. He also joined us today. So Dr. Adrian, what the additional things you want to add today?
Yes, I think, well, that's right. It really is up to the, as Alex just mentioned, it's the youth who are really going to be the important leaders coming up. And I think, we're in a state of we're in a state of different kind of leadership, that we're seeing around the world. And you know, even in America, I mean, what a huge difference in leadership was the Trump administration and Biden administration. So you know, I think it's difficult to say what it would, you know. Yeah, young people have many opportunities to become leaders, and there's different ways to lead. Even in the, you know, the world's #1 country, richest country, you know, we've seen two very different forms of leadership: the Trump administration, the Biden administration. So, which one is right? I think it's for the history books. Again, I was saying, you know, it's hard to write history when you're in the middle of it. But you know, definitely young people have to shape the future of leadership.
Thank Dr. Talib. Can you hear me? Professor Talib. Professor Talib, can you hear me? Yes, Professor Talib. Anyway, Mr. Alex, I think he's outside. Anyway, Mr. Yes, Professor Talib, can you hear me? Okay, Mr. Alex, my questions to you, like example, at present situation, we have many leaders around the world, but we observe Greta is a young lady. She is actually creating more awareness around the world for this climate change. On the other hand, we are observing many leaders, like if we compare, like I do not want to compare, but if we see Greta's activities in terms of climate change and other things, she actually attracts all of the global peoples. She is a young lady. Even she can convince the whole world that okay, we have more challenges. Why actually different global leaders, they cannot attract their communities to solve these climate change issues like Greta? What the difference? What the difference in between the political leaders and Greta?
Okay, actually, before you even asked that question, I was going to say something similar. So, she was basically at the right place at the right time at the right age with the right look, and she did the right thing that got the attention that she got. So before I talk more about her, there's a lot. The reason why I'm trying to say this is there's a lot of celebrities around the world that people are now looking towards, turning to. They respect, they admire, just because of like one YouTube video that goes viral. And through the power of social media, we have these people that are becoming really famous or hyper famous just because of one thing that they did one time. And they're not always the best leaders, and then they're out giving advice to people. And Donald Trump is an example of that. Like he was on a TV show, and I mean he made a lot of good moves. You know, it's like if life was chess, he made a lot of good moves over all the years to be in this position. But I don't think he was a good person and a good role model. But the TV show really helped him out. YouTube helps a lot of people, you know, do a funny video, a silly video, a clever video. It goes viral, you know, gets millions of views. And then people are turning to them for more leadership type things. So I think Greta was in that situation where she was at the right age and she was at the right place and she was holding the sign. She was doing something that a lot of people around the world resonated with, and they also looked towards and sorry the and they respected her for what she was doing. Can we close that mic? Can you hear that?
Yes, please
I just
continue.
can't. Okay. So thank you. So there's like two types of leaders. I think there's the type that like work hard over, you know, a really long time, you know, get the education, you know, their experience, they have the background, they've dedicated their whole life to it, and sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. And then other people sometimes just end up in this leadership type position where a lot of people are looking towards them and depending on them. And I think Greta in that situation, she ended up in that situation. I'm not sure if she initially wanted to be in that situation. Thankfully, she was a good leader. She like accepted the responsibility that she was in, and she continued to educate people about the climate emergency and environmental solutions. So I think she did really great, given that she ended up in that situation. So aside from that, we've already covered, you know, passionate, you know, people make good leaders, and listening, delegation, courage, dedication, all of these different things. So there's a couple more things that I want to, you know, mention. So I think it would be really difficult to be a good leader if you were lazy. You kind of got to like not be lazy. You got to get up, you got to do things, you got to work, you got to be productive, you got to try to get things done. So I think if you're lazy, if you just want to, you know, watch TV, play video games, stay at home, relax a lot of the time, you're not going to be the best leader. So there's different types of personalities that make good leaders, and I don't think if you're lazy, you're probably not going to be the best leader. So reliability is important to be a leader. People have to be able to rely on you. That's might be calling you when it's your day off because something went wrong, you know, at the workplace, on the job, and then just making sure that you show up on time, that you're there every day, you know, and people expect you to be there. That if, you know, you're always in your office, they know where to find you. They know where to get a hold of you. They can call you up on the walkie-talkie. So reliability is important. Also, approachability is important. Just knowing that you can go up and talk to your boss is just so important. You might be you know, not at his level as far as, you know, education or work experience, but just knowing that you can stop him maybe on a break and you can talk to him. And I know that that not only makes a good leader, that also makes a good teacher. You know, when I've been in school, when I could talk to my teacher after class, before class, ask some questions, I know that's really valuable to me to get those questions answered. So I wanted to mention that. So respect kind of goes along with trust that I mentioned earlier. Being able to, you know, trust the leader is important. But if you don't respect the leader, I mean, you're not necessarily going to work as hard. You're not going to perform as well. You're not going to do your job task as good. You're not going to be as motivated or inspired. So I think just trusting the leader and respecting the leader is also up there as important. So if you are going to be a leader, I think just solutions and finding solutions to everything is important. So there's constantly going to be things that go wrong, things that happen, things that you have to find the solutions to, and you have to work on those solutions as often as possible. So I got 3 more things that I'll leave for the
Thank you.
next,
Thank you.
next chapter.
Mr. T.
Thank you.
Devas.
Yes, real quick, I was going to say that besides Greta Thunberg, there's another young leader, Malala Yousafzai, who's the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner of all time. She said
Okay.
that guns kill terrorists, but education kills terrorism. And she's a young girl in Pakistan who's had such a significant movement for women's rights across the world. So every voice counts.
Yes, very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Professor Adrian.
Well, yes. I agree with what was said, and that you know, I think we have to think of many different kind of young leaders, and you know, environmentalism is one issue, but there's a lot of issues to solve, or you know, to address in our world. So,
Yes.
you know, there's many opportunities for young people, you know, in terms of different areas of, you know, of leadership, politics, economics, you know, social factors, etc., etc. So, you know, we're going to see many different kind of leaders, and you know, so going back to the point of the USA, I think we still haven't resolved what is still a state of flux, because so we had 4 years of a kind of leadership by Trump, and then we got Biden now, and it's only the early stage, but I think 2024 we're going to see, again, this question come. It seems to me that almost half of America supports a kind of, let's say, Trump-style leadership. It's almost half, and the other half do not. So we have a real question, which is not resolved yet, I don't think. And I like to see, as a researcher, you tend to look at the 20, 30 years viewpoint. We really haven't resolved this issue. It's not over yet. We're still in the middle of history, and 2024 is going to be back to the same question: what kind of leadership is going to be seen in basically number one country in the world, America. So we still haven't resolved this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Madam Ali.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, as far as I can see, Trump was inflammatory and basically on Twitter and things like that, he didn't have a filter. He just said what he did. And I think the thing is that no leader until him has behaved in that way. So, but I think as I don't know enough about his, what he was supporting, but I know my husband is a supporter of Trump. And I think the thing is that there were good things that he was doing, but I think the way that he went about it got everyone's backs up. So so I think that the thing is that there's always two sides to a coin, isn't there? And there's always two sides. And essentially, it's like in the UK, my parents have always been conservative and we've got a conservative government in power. But during my business, the most fruitful time for me was when the Labour government was in, because it opened up lots of opportunities for creative practitioners to be in schools, and they were trying to tackle the lack of engagement in schools as well. So essentially, it's all about your perspective and your experience of what happens. And I think the thing is that ultimately, with the global crisis, what we need to do is actually realise that we're all a human race and there's a global community. And that there has to be some kind of humanity involved in what we do and how we do it. And then essentially, if we look at our local areas and see what we can do, but realise that we've got a global reach because of technology, we've never been in a better place to affect change. But the change needs to come not through division and hate, but through something that's kind of working together so that everybody's, because everyone's not in the same boat. They're all in the same storm. So, it's kind of, we've got a roof over our heads and food, and it's kind of, and we're lucky to live where we are, but lots of people aren't. So it's kind of, their experience of lockdown has been different if they've been in a city centre in the UK, let alone somewhere in a third world country. So everyone's perspective's based on their own experience. So but I just think from my point of view, real leadership, the head teacher at the school where my children go to, and not only has pivoted online and supported his staff to support their children in their best possible, their best possible way, but he's also been building a new arts centre. So he's looking forward and pushing through with his vision. And he knows that creativity is just as important as academia as well. So, it's kind of, and he's, when there's torrential rain in the middle of Chipping Camden, there's a one-way section in the street that actually blocks traffic, and he is the person in the visibility jacket directing traffic, the head teacher. So the thing is, if you're prepared to get your hands dirty and muck in and show that you're just as eager and willing to do what it takes to change, leadership isn't about being above everybody all the time. It's about making sure that you understand what happens grassroots, and that you can kind of figure out where things need fixing and how best to do it with the people that that are involved. So it's stakeholders as well. It's not just one person's decision. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and everyone should potentially have the long-term view that we need to be happy and have good well-being, and be healthy, and and be prosperous and abundant. So in theory, that there's enough food in the world for everybody, but there's a distribution problem. So essentially, the West has got food mountains because we waste so much food and throw it away, and there's people in other parts of Africa that don't have. That makes no sense. And the thing is that things need to shift, because that's not okay. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. Tita was like, as you are political analyst, so my question is that, like, what area politicians right now they should focus, especially in that situations?
Okay, I'd like to say servant leadership is the principle that they should follow, all politicians. And that reminds me of the great General Alexander the Great. He was one of the largest empire builders of all time. He was known to fight in the front lines with his troops and the infantry side by side. And whenever they would go to an oasis to get water, he would wait to be the last person to drink from the water. So he really cared for his troops. And that was servant leadership as an example. You got to be on the front lines with your customers to know what they want, and your employees, if you're the CEO of a company, you have to be not better than them. You need to be on the level with them.
Thank you. Mr. Alex.
Yeah, what was just said, yeah, thank you. That's also the difference between a boss and a leader. So the boss always says I, and a leader always says we. The boss is always, getting upset and delegating things. The leader is kind of more working with the people and more compassionate and more caring, more empathetic. So there's a lot of not pros and cons. There's a big separation in between how someone is a boss and how someone is a leader. But we need more leaders in the world, not just with some of these movements, but yeah, definitely just in the workplace, just so we can have better workplaces. I loved what Adrian mentioned earlier. It is important that we have more leaders around the world, and it's not just like Greta, it's not just the environmental movement. There's a lot of other movements that people have to spend their attention, their time, their education. There's a lot of things that we have to fix in our society, a lot of things that are that aren't going the way that they should. We have a lot of work to do in a short amount of time, and we're seeing environmental degradation. We're seeing ecosystem collapses. We're seeing pollution around the world. We're seeing a lot of racism and sexism, and just so many issues that we need more leaders working towards some of these issues and working towards solutions. So I wanted to mention individual initiative and how important that is for a leader. That means taking the time to take the individual initiative to get the education or to do the research or watch the YouTube videos, look at the data, look at the statistics, go through the training programs, go through the seminars, follow along with videos like this, and just continue to get all of the knowledge you can about that specific subject, so you can be more confident when you're that boss. So I mentioned responsibility. Oh, I didn't mention collaboration. So a lot of leaders, they collaborate with other people. I do this as an environmentalist, constantly collaborating with other groups and other nonprofits or other entities or even companies that would like to sponsor some of my projects. So that's another good trait, is just knowing how to collaborate with different groups and teams and people, because collectively you're stronger and you could accomplish more, and you can just figure out where people fit in better, where groups fit in better to accomplish great things. So I didn't mention pride. I didn't mention selfishness, which is also important. And I did want to thank, I thanked Adrian. Oh, and I wanted to thank Ali just for being on the show. That the internet's so much better now than it was earlier. So I'm happy that I had a chance to listen to you speak and hear some of your feedback in the conversation. So that's all
So
for now.
our honorable, yes, thank you. Our honorable guest, Dr. Talib, as well as Mr. Home Stoner, Pacific Rim Business Council chairman, honorable chairman, he also joins. So I just want to request Mr. Homestoner that we are discussing about leadership. You are also a good leaders. You are running a big chamber of commerce. So what's your opinion regarding this leadership in challenging situation?
Leadership comes from one place, and that comes from setting an example for others and then passing that along to people that have become other leaders under you or beside you, or whatever the case may be. Leading by example is the ultimate goal of any leader. Leaders aren't to show power and to show that they have this condescending attitude over others. Leaders are supposed to create other leaders, and to do that, you have to lead by example. And in turbulent times like we have right now, it is even more important for someone to who is in a leadership role to step up and to define themselves as someone that you want to be like, something that you want to emulate.
Yes, thank you. We have our another guest, Mr. Paul, also join in these sessions. Mr. Paul, yeah, we are discussing about leadership in these challenging moments. So how do you want to define this leadership?
Okay, so can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
leadership is home stoner. Home stoner is
Okay.
in charge of an organization, and he leads by either doing and or delegating. So if you have a trust in a guy like Home Stoner, if Home Stoner asks me to jump off a bridge, I won't do it. But if Holmes asks me to go and do something for him, I'm going to do it. So in essence, what it really boils down to is trusting somebody, gaining the respect of, not being a hands-on, got to do everything yourself kind of guy. You got to be able to, you have to be able to others, share with others, work with others, and let them, because there's more, two hands, 4 hands, 6 hands, 8 hands is much better than 2 hands. And you have trusted people, you respect what they have to say, and you move life forwards. The dictators don't work. They eventually get fired or worse. That's my
Thank
thought.
you.
Thank you. And I'm
Thank
at the Museum of Natural History right now, and the tulips are coming up, and it's gorgeous here in New York.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Talib, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, we have our guest, Dr. Talib. So, Professor Adrian, so many interesting points come as a climate activist, as the leaders. Even we have our important person from media. So, what your analysis?
Well, as I said, environmental is one very, very important issue. But I think for the young people, it's a lot of issues to look at in today's world. So I think just one good example is 2020, one of the worst years of human history. What a challenge that was for leaders around the world, and some leaders who seemed maybe not really up to the task did very well for their countries, and other leaders did very, very badly. And also there's a question we have to address here is we always thought that democracy is the best way. Well, I still think democracy is the best way, but in terms of controlling a pandemic, democracy may not be a very good way. If you look at, say, China, where the pandemic originated, but they totally controlled it through very, very heavy-handed authoritarian methods, but a lot of lives were saved, I guess, compared to the same more than 500,000. I think it's nearly 600,000 people died in the USA. So we have to really question. You know, a lot of the things we assumed were correct. We have to question it now after 2020, the year of the pandemic. You know, democracy is it really the best way? Probably, I still think it is. You know, if you look at in normal times, but in times of emergency, maybe the China model was better. You know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm just observing. We have to really think about these political systems as a whole.
Thank you, Madam Ali.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
So you are woman entrepreneur. So you have a very good leadership qualities. So yeah.
So I think it's because what I've always done has been a pioneer. So essentially, I've catalyzed change through using creativity, and most of that's been about inspiring and engaging children that have been disengaged. But we've used all kinds of techniques. So we've made animation, but it's about child-led discovery and inquiry. And I think essentially, I just think to innovate, you still need to be the change that you want to see. So essentially, you know, even if it's locally makes an impact and tries to make changes or co-create something that's fundamental to that shift, that's how you start really. And then if that model works, then you share it with other people, you know, across the globe so that they can what's working and what isn't. So yeah, and obviously each culture is different, so you have to really understand the culture to be able to work within it really. So environmentally, you can't run eco projects and just go in and not have any understanding of how things are for the people that live there, or you know, it's kind of so essentially culturally, you have to have an understanding before you go in. So obviously, the education system in the UK is very different to the one in the States. And I've been in the education system for 30 years and it's massively changed. And my children are within that system. So I've never been more invested in the education system because my children are part of it and their future is really important to me. So that's the thing, is that when you're passionate, it's because it matters, because there's a fundamental thing that matters to you and your family. So yeah, that's where so essentially, as Alex was saying, actually, the passion for what you do, you know, so you've probably, I think everyone's got a journey and a be here, and that's mine. So yeah.
I just want to add one thing. It's raining here like the monsoons in New York.
Okay.
But behind me is a new technology center for the Museum of Natural History. On the nether side over there is the planetarium, okay? And so technology, I think, in this day and age, using it wisely is a potential opportunity for world peace. This little phone that you and I are, computer that you and I are on, once again, the medium is a message, but the actual message is really the whole thing. So with good, positive, life-affirming, good news, the world can continue on in a peaceful way, which most of the world is, and that's a good thought to promote, and then move life forward. So I'm pouring, so I'm kind of walking towards my home. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Homestoner. What's your advice, especially for the youth community, how they can develop their leadership quality in this situation?
Well, leadership is a matter of with a lot of elements that are involved into being a leader. One of the most important is the discipline that you have to have so that you don't react to things emotionally. It's very easy to be a leader and you have someone in your group or your organization that is disruptive, and you have to know how to address those kinds of things. The other thing is to know where your talent is, so you know how to delegate. Delegation is one of the key elements in being a leader. When it comes to youth are basically very impressionable. I've raised a couple of children, and they grew up to be pretty good human beings. And I think that throughout their lives, you have to show these children the example that you want them to be when they grow up, and that is the key element. And I think that everyone on the panel here will agree with me that, you know, the world is inherited by our children. Well, how we impress these children and how we uh, give them the tools that they need to lead and to have a better future is up to us. I mean, are we good people or are we not good people? Are we a good example or are we not a good example? Our children are the future of this planet, and we have to protect them to make sure that the environment is going to be okay for them and that their future is assured. And that takes all the strength that you have as a leader to make that happen.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we directly
Okay.
want to go for the concluding remarks for today. I want to start from Mr. Paul, then TJ Was, then Mr. Alex, then Professor Adrian, then Madam Ali, and finally our honorable chairman, Mr. Homestoner. Mr. Paul, what are the concluding remarks for today?
Okay. I think Holmes said a tremendous amount with his commentary a moment or two ago. My comment also includes Mother Earth. That's why I showed you the planetarium. You know, we're just we're borrowing the space that we live on. So we need, in addition to our humanity, Homo sapien brothers and sisters, we need to love our animal and plant kingdom and be kind to that equally, because that's where our future generations will hang out. Let's put it like that. All right, and thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this group.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Mr. TJ Was, what are the
Yes,
concluding
I'd
remarks
like to
for
say
today?
that President Dwight D. Eisenhower was the greatest general of World War II, and he was famous for saying that leadership is getting other people to do what you want and that they are happy to do it as a humble leader. So that's one thing that I learned when I traveled throughout China. I talked to the people there at our sister universities, the students, about how they felt about President Xi Jinping, and they said that he had humility. He followed the Confucius maxim of stay calm in the storm. So he's keep calm and carry on, and that's the message that I'd like to carry on for everyone here: is to keep calm and carry on. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Alex.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks again for another great show, Sharif, bringing all these people together in another discussion on an important topic. I love learning from the different panelists and incorporating that information into my life to hopefully make me a smarter, more informed person. I wanted to thank Adrian for that perspective about China. That was really interesting. That was said. I mostly agree, but at the same time, it's just that perspective. Just even thinking about how he mentioned that China, because of their political structure, how they were able to address the pandemic more. What is it, like authoritarian? How they locked down everything, and they were able to control the pandemic very quickly, which prevented suffering or reduced suffering and helped save human lives. I wish there was like a better balance in between getting people to take action on important issues like that or environmental issues. I am a Democrat and I like, democracy, but at the same time, look at all the Trump supporters we have in America that they're racist and they're sexist and they don't care about the climate. They don't believe in the pandemic. They don't wear face masks. I mean, just like a bad group of people in my country. So I don't know if democracy is always the best when you have a lot of ill-informed people in a specific population. So I wanted to thank Adrian for that information, bringing that into the discussion. And I want to leave it with individual initiative. I covered maybe 12 to 15 different topics or traits regarding a good leader, but I think individual initiative is really important. It's taking the individual initiative to learn how to delegate tasks, to be a better listener, to try to be courageous, to be confident, decisive, optimistic. All of these different things you could work on as a human, because we have access to the worldwide internet with technology and information, books, libraries. So just taking the individual initiative to learn everything that you can to be a better leader, and because there's always room for improvement. But I mean, this age that we're in with these smartphones and computers and the library, I mean, we could learn and train ourselves to do just about anything that we want. And I think that does come down to individual initiative, because there's so many other things I could be doing with my time. You see people playing sports, watching TV shows, video games, going out, doing things that they want to do all the time, which is sometimes, not really productive, but individual initiative goes a long way. That's all. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Talib. Yes, yeah, you are also a great leaders, a great politicians, and most important thing is that you are running many important organizations in the world. So, what's your concluding remarks for today, especially as a leaders and for
Thank you,
our
thank
youth
you.
community?
I apologize for the technology. Technology has not been very good with me
I understand.
Oh,
today.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry about that, Alex.
No.
yeah,
Alex.
no
No.
problem.
Thank you. Thank you. No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, you're here now.
Now, I think as a leader, you should always connect what you do to a higher cause. Always. Never be so limited to your own silo. For example, when I was working in tourism, I connected tourism to a much higher cause than just travel, just leisure. It was people that mattered more. I always used the slogan, I'm here to make the world a better place. That's the only business we're in. We're not just in the business of having people travel and making growth. You always have to connect it to a higher cause. But more importantly is to connect it to people. I spent 20 years of my life working in tourism, half of my professional life. I don't give a damn about tourism. What I care about is what tourism does to the rest of the world, to the people of the world. That's more important than anything. That's what I want to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Talibs, for supporting World Talent in Economy Forum initiatives. And hopefully our youth community should learn from you how to be a good leader for their country and for the global communities. So, Professor Adrian.
Okay. Well, thanks, Alex, for your compliments, and I hope there's more leaders like you in the world. And so I want to end with a positive note, saying I'm hopeful that there will be more leaders like Alex and in the future. At the same time, we can't ignore the problem. As Alex was saying, there's a lot of Trump supporters, and I can't remember the number. I think it's 54 million or 57 million. It's a lot of people, so we can't ignore them. And I think we have to really think about that carefully. How do we live in the, let's say, post-Trump world, and try to make the world a better place with all the, great ideas that Alex was talking about, environmentalism and treating people of all races fairly. But at the same time, how do we deal with the fact that there's a lot of people who do support Trump, and so also we have to also consider the fact that a bit of an echo chamber. I agree with almost everything people are saying here, and I love what Alex was talking about. But we have to think and now because of the maybe because of the internet, or I don't know what is the reason, but we're in an echo chamber, and there's people who are on some other forum now, probably right now, or watching Fox News or something, who would totally disagree with everything we said here. So that's another issue we have to address. We're all talking. all the people here, we're kind of talking in an echo chamber. But you know, I don't know how to solve this problem, but we have to consider that as well. And how do we deal with the fact that, you know, many millions of people do support Trump and his style of leadership. But I want to leave with a hopeful note, and I hope that, you know, people like Alex do become the leaders in the end. But you know, let's consider, how do we deal with these situations we have now.
Thank you, Madam Ali. What's your concluding report today?
Okay, so fundamentally, most of my projects work with young people, and I think they are the future. And essentially, they see the possibility, and I think a lot of adults kind of close in and contract and don't think that we can change the way things are. And Deepak Chopra's quote actually is one of the things that's got me through a whole year of lockdown. And I've been training with a mentor of mine that's a social entrepreneur as well. And she belongs to Genius U, which is an entrepreneurship platform that's free, that supports entrepreneurs. So I definitely direct anyone that wants to pursue entrepreneurship to go there. But effectively, uncertainty is the most fertile ground for creativity. And it's also the most fertile ground for inspiration, imagination, and innovation. So essentially, what we need to do is think about new models and not necessarily think laterally, really connect to people and see where the possibility is so that we can do things differently. And, you know, at the moment, exams here in England are being assessed. There's no exams happening. And maybe that's the way forward. Maybe that, you know, there's more online, you know, learning that needs to happen that's kind of more beneficial. So, you know, it's kind of, so essentially we need to look at what's working and what isn't, and keep kind of transforming and evolving to see where there's, you know, where there's a kind of a future. So essentially, you know, so I agree, like everyone else, that, you know, fundamentally we've got one world and we all share it, and we need to be healthy, happy, and, you know, so we need to fundamentally follow our own journeys, and maybe we should encourage our children to follow their passions, because maybe their gifts and talents are there for a reason. So that's my.
Thank you. Honorable Chairman, Mr. Homestoner.
Well, getting back to the comment of the gentleman about China and being able to contain the virus, the fact of the matter is that China has 1.3 billion people, 5 times more than the United States. I lived in China 15, almost 16 years, all over China. I'm very familiar with the country. You have to look at their leadership. If you were a young leader coming into the government and you had a city of 12 million people, you had to feed them, transport them, keep them healthy, give them food and water. How would you do it when you're talking about a population that's 5 times bigger than yours, and have the, let's just say, the short-sightedness of criticizing them? It is a very daunting and very difficult, challenging job to be a leader in China because of the population. In the free nations, Australia, Canada, United States, Europe, populations are much older and much smaller. So it's much easier to lead and to manage. We have to take these things in perspective when we start doing talking about things like leadership. So I will thank you all for being here with us, and thank you, Sharif, for doing these things, because I think it's very, very healthy for everyone to see everyone's viewpoint.
Thanks.
And I want to thank you for having me here.
Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. I just request to all of our observers, those who are observing our sessions, share as much as possible. Share in your classrooms, share in the universities, share with your policymakers, share with your corporations, because we have our great panelists. We have our great politician, Dr. Talib, who do a lot for around the world. We have our great business leaders, Mr. Homestoners. We have our great media personals, Mr. Paul, great professor, Dr. Adrians, climate activists, Alex, Ortiz was, and Madam Ali Rana, all of them actually doing a great job for better humanities. And I request everyone learn from this kind of leaders. They are the leaders, those who can change the world. So we need more of your support. World Talent Economy Forums, we are developing ourselves as a global think tank, and we need more of your support, more of your like collaboration, because we need to do a lot of work with our grassroots level people, with our rural areas peoples, with the developing nations people who are trying to change these things. And especially we, every day we are learning from our different leaders. Always Dr. Talib says that you have to do work for your grassroots level. That is our objective. So thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Hopefully we can run more sessions like this. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Live
you.
long and
Thank you.
prosper.
Thank
Okay,
you.
bye bye.